This is a sci-fi film without scary pictures, but he embodies the creepiness incisively and vividly. Just imagine, when you are alone at night, you always feel that there is something staring at the invisible monster at the door, which will keep you awake all night. You don't even dare to turn off the lights to sleep. This unknown fear is the most frightening. The female duck egg is in such an environment. Recently, she always feels that there is an invisible person at home. As long as there is no light, the duck egg will open. After checking the kitchen, there seems to be no abnormality. However, at this time, there was a sudden sound of opening the door behind the duck egg, which scared him not to look back. Is there really someone else in the house? The safety bolt of the door was still shaking, but no one could be seen. Duck eggs hurried out to check the situation. Who would run to his home on such a cold night? The next second, he suddenly felt someone exhaling beside him, but when he looked back, there was nothing. The next night, the timid duck egg decided to sleep with Xiaomei, but the quilt fell under the bed strangely. Then, the electric light in the room started to make trouble again, and the flashing light woke up the duck egg. When he found the quilt on the ground, he saw a creepy scene. There seems to be a person sitting on the chair in the bedroom, and there are obvious traces of pressing on the cushion. The duck egg summoned up the courage to throw the quilt up, but it threw it into the air. He felt that he might be in a bad mood recently, so he dragged the quilt to sleep. Suddenly, duck egg's quilt was grabbed by some force. He suddenly looked back and found that there were footprints in one corner of the quilt. An invisible man stepped on him. Duck eggs were so scared that they quickly called for support. Lao Wang next door heard a scream and rushed in. However, when the light was turned on, there was nothing. This is not the first time that he has been kicking in the middle of the night. Lao Wang obviously doesn't believe in duck eggs. Recent signs show that duck eggs may have mental problems. It turned out that he had been imprisoned by his abnormal boyfriend before. Although her boyfriend Ad is the boss of a technology company, her desire for control is almost abnormal. No matter what duck eggs wear or what they eat, drink, live and do, Ad always controls them like a pet. As long as duck eggs don't act according to his wishes, all he has to do is kick and punch. Finally, one night, duck egg stunned Ad with tranquilizer. She aimed the camera in her room at her boyfriend so that she could always observe each other with her mobile phone. Then, the duck egg used its strength to climb over the wall. At this time, her boyfriend in the villa suddenly noticed the abnormality, leaving her little time to escape. Fortunately, she informed her best friend before the action. In this way, duck egg finally escaped from her boyfriend's clutches, but it also became her worry. Even the letters she usually went out to get would regard passers-by who ran in the morning as her boyfriend. Duck egg's fear of AD has reached the bone. However, a few days later, her best friend suddenly ran over and told her that Ad actually committed suicide in his villa. Duck egg can't believe it for a while, but the news report has become a fact. It says that Ad, a big man in the optical field, committed suicide at home. Until this time, duck egg was relieved that he finally dared to go out of his house. However, on that day, Yaden received another letter, which was a notice of inheritance. That pervert actually gave his family property to Yaden, and also entrusted his own brother as a lawyer. His total assets were $5 million, and he would pay Yaden 100,000 a month. During these 10 years, as long as he didn't do anything illegal, he could receive 100,000 yuan of inheritance every month. But duck egg always thinks this pervert can't commit suicide. However, brother Ad gave the ironclad fact that his urn was placed on the back wall. Even so, duck's egg is still not good. These years of torture make him unable to sleep every night. No matter where duck's egg escapes, he can't get rid of Ad's mental control. Xiaomei at the door could not bear to see the scene. He wanted to come over and persuade duck eggs. However, shortly after squatting down, Xiaomei was suddenly slapped by the air. The duck eggs next to her were all dumbfounded. However, Xiaomei thought it was duck eggs. He hurried to call Lao Wang next door. It was obvious that Lao Wang could no longer stand duck eggs. Even if he was talking about them at ordinary times, now it has developed into a violent tendency. Desperate duck eggs do not know what to do. He shouted at the door. How on earth can this madman let himself go? Suddenly, duck egg thought of something. If the other person is still alive, he should still be able to get through. Sure enough, Ad's cell phone ring came from the roof. Did he hide on the roof all the time? Duck egg quickly climbed into the attic to look for clues, but only found a mobile phone with a picture of him sleeping on weekdays. At this time, the mobile phone suddenly received a text message, which said surprise, surprise, or surprise. It turns out that Ad is really always by his side, and he is still observing duck eggs all the time. He looked at the stairwell, and the more he saw, the more something went wrong. He suddenly picked up the paint bucket and dragged it down. The next second, a transparent man appeared in front of him, and the duck egg was scared back by the monster. When he climbed to the stairwell again, the transparent man had fled the scene, but the paint on the ground exposed his whereabouts. Duck egg followed the clues to the kitchen. This was the last place where the paint traces disappeared. He walked gingerly with a kitchen knife. Suddenly, the duck egg was pinched by someone and pulled up directly. The feeling of suffocation made him unable to even wave a knife. Then, the other party first threw the duck's egg on the wall, then dragged it from the ground to torture the other party, and then according to his own instructions, the duck's egg was beaten without any strength to fight back. He endured the severe pain, took out a shovel from the drawer, and then hit the air with a heavy blow. Although we can't see each other clearly, he is certainly not invincible. However, the next second, the other party directly threw the duck's egg several meters away. The transparent man tortured the duck's egg unscrupulously. He could only wave his fist at the air. Finally, in the interval of the fight, the duck's egg took the time to hit the other party with a plate and and let him escape from home. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest. Duck Egg decides to go directly to Adelaide's house. Maybe he can find clues about the other side's engine. After arriving at the villa, Duck Egg saw a transparent nail, but the bracket was empty. The monitoring screen on the wall attracted his attention. There was no camera in the room, but this picture could see any angle of view. He pressed the red button suspiciously. Suddenly, the bracket beside him actually had a shape, and a transparent human shape was slowly emerging. Then, the invisibility cloak of countless cameras appeared in front of the Duck Egg. It turns out that Ad really developed this kind of thing. He used optical imaging to reflect the surrounding environment, thus achieving the function of invisibility. Duck Egg quickly took down his invisibility cloak. He came up with a perfect plan. Then Duck Egg secretly put the invisibility cloak into the wardrobe. After he escaped from the villa, Yadin called his best friend at the first time, and the two agreed to meet in the restaurant an hour later. Before long, her best friend hinted that she had appeared in the restaurant, and Yadin quickly told her that she had found the truth. However, the next sentence was that suddenly the knife on the table rose out of thin air. Then the best friend was directly wiped off his neck. Then the knife flew back to Yadin's hands, and the customers eating next to him were also shocked. In the eyes of others, the evidence of Duck Egg's murder is certain. However, due to Duck Egg's abnormal mental state, he was not put in prison at the first time, but sent to a mental hospital. Brother Ad also came here after learning about the situation. Duck Egg learned the truth from the other party. It turned out that Ad forged evidence of suicide so that he could do whatever he wanted with his invisibility cloak, because there was no such person in the world. As long as Duck Egg was obedient, Ad would be willing to spend a lot of money to bail him out, but Duck Egg could not compromise. He never wanted to return to that pervert again. In the evening, Duck Egg took out a pen and prepared to commit suicide. Even if he died, he couldn't let the pervert get him. Suddenly, the transparent man appeared and stopped Yadin. Sure enough, the other party was deceived. This was Yadin's revenge plan, and he knew Adzin's own body. Duck Egg stabbed the pen on the transparent man, and the continuous attack made the stealth device malfunction. Then the fighting sound of the two people attracted many guards, but they were not the opponents of the transparent man at all. The transparent man was like the god of war. He knocked over a group of guards and escaped, but this also made Duck Egg obtain self-evidence. At that time, the death of his best friend was the masterpiece of the transparent man. Duck Egg hurried out with a gun. However, even if the invisibility cloak failed, he was not the opponent of the transparent man. But Ad didn't kill Duck Eggs. Instead, he told him that he would kill all his friends around him and that he would suffer endless pain. After the transparent man left, Yadin hurried to inform Lao Mao, but it was too late. The transparent man had arrived at Lao Wang's residence. At this time, he finally believed Yadin's words. Ad, who had an invisibility cloak, had the advantage, and Lao Wang was beaten by him. At the last moment of his death, Duck Egg arrived in time with a fire extinguisher. He completely disgusted transparent people with dry powder, and then fired several shots without hesitation. This is the resentment and anger that Duck Eggs have accumulated for a long time. However, when he took off his head cover, it was not Ad himself who was wearing the invisibility cloak, but his biological brother. What the hell is going on? After the police thoroughly investigated the case, they got the result that his brother had imprisoned Ad. The evidence suddenly ushered in a big reversal, and AD and Duck Egg actually became victims. But Yadin is very convinced that all this is a conspiracy designed by Ad. After the hospital was exposed, he used his brother to get rid of the suspicion. That is, he killed people from the hospital and fled home, and then deliberately asked his brother to go to Lao Wang's house to expose his identity. So Duck Egg put on makeup and found Ado alone. He expressed his willingness to return to this pervert. The two then shared a dinner in the villa hall, and the monitoring equipment in the room recorded everything. Ad began to think about how he fell in love with Duck Eggs and kept saying unfashionable love words. However, Yadin changed the subject. If you want to live with him, you should admit what you have done. But Ad always insisted that he was the victim and that all bad things were done by his brother. It turns out that Yadin has been carrying eavesdropping equipment since he entered the door. As long as he admits his crime, Lao Wang outside can record it. However, no matter what Duck Egg asked, Ad would never admit it until he said that in Duck Egg's ear. Feel surprised? Feel off guard? Duck Egg directly identified the murderer on the spot, but he wanted to kill the pervert himself, so he pretended to go to the bathroom and left here. The monitoring screen also recorded this moment. In fact, he knew the monitoring structure well. Then Ad, who was unprepared, picked up the knife and wiped his neck during the monitoring. He didn't expect that there was still an invisibility cloak hidden in the closet at home. He even thought he was in control. Who would have expected that the Duck Eggs had reached the atmosphere? Pretending nothing happened, Duck Egg returned to the restaurant and made an emergency call for Ad in panic. However, after the phone call, Duck Egg also said that sentence. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Lao Wang outside suddenly felt something bad. When he arrived at the villa, he saw that Duck Eggs were ready to leave with their invisibility cloak. It turned out that Lao Wang was also used by Duck Eggs. He didn't plan to let Ad recruit at the beginning. Duck Egg told Lao Wang with a smile. What was the scene you heard just now? Lao Wang can only answer that that the other party seems to have committed suicide. So far, the whole film is over. At that time, the film had already been released and exploded directly. The director grasped the thriller rhythm to the extreme. This is also the theme of Transparent People. After being shot badly, the director simply turned this theme red again. He presented all the people's fears from the unknown. Invisibility means that the threat is everywhere. The heroine's acting skills are also classic. The helplessness and panic in her eyes are enough to bring the audience into the extreme fear of the film.